Hail and welcome. Thanks for being here. Been quite the interesting past week. We'll dive into some Twitter trash later, which will kind of tie into that comment right there. And one of the other things that's been really interesting this week is seeing a lot of indie creators and legends of apparently in comics supporting and being part of AI and crowdfunded comics. So I don't know if I'll have much time to dive into that today, but that's definitely going to be a main topic eventually because I think most people that know me know that I absolutely do not agree with AI being tied in with comics or novels in any aspect outside of, if people want to use it for brainstorming, playing around with it to get ideas, maybe, but definitely shouldn't be no AI art or AI writing in anything in comics or novels, especially if it's being crowdfunded. And we're seeing crowdfunded campaigns that are charging the same prices as folks that are using real art, which to me that's a complete slap in the face of two comics, two backers, two creators that actually respect the medium. And it's really sad to see some folks cheerleading that and supporting it instead of actually, I don't know, standing by real art, which is what culture is built on. But let's check in on the chat, see who's here. We have Zombie Boy, welcome. We have Michelle Bowers, welcome. Thanks for being here. You have Niobe Comics. I think we'll be reviewing some of his tweets later on. That'll be quite entertaining. Rage baiters and agitators is what CG has done for 8 years straight. Why am I not surprised by that comment? AI is part of it now, BA. It ain't going anywhere. Hmm. Well, it may be part of it now, but there could be legal issues down the road, right? There are already lawsuits, ongoing. I think with some of these AI generators, and the thing is, it would really suck to create a comic or a book, get it out in retail, and then have to have it pulled because there ends up being laws later on that say, oh, yeah, you can't just use a program that takes images or content without the permission of the original creators. And so anything tied to said AI generators is going to get pulled. That'd really suck, wouldn't it? And I wouldn't be against such laws because, honestly, these AI generators, they should not be using any content that they're not paying for. They haven't explicitly gotten permission from the creators to use that content. That is a huge, huge problem, not just morally, but creatively. You name it, that should not be okay with anybody. It's obviously convenient and an easy out and a shortcut for those that are using it, but there definitely could be some issues with that legally down the road. And I don't want any part of that, whether it's morally or legally. So I'm going to go with real artists and I'm going to go with real storytelling. No shortcuts for me. Sorry. Get Corey Barton. Speaking of a real artist who has done real art for me in my campaign, fantastic indie artist there. How's it going? We have Tevin the Lore Seeker. Welcome. He'll be reviewing me. That's a weird. Hopefully, you mean reviewing my tweets, not like checking me out or something, but and EFAPing my stream. By all means, go for it. I knew you were gonna do that anyways, whether it was in regards to the tweet storm that you created or this stream. So my tweets are troll tweets from a burner account. So go ahead and look at them. Still your tweets. It doesn't matter if it's a burner account or not. What matters is what's being said in said tweets. He says they point out that you are in a gang that attacks names like Dan Slott, Mark Brooks, Gail Simone, Kelly Sue, and so many others, talking trash about, oh man, take your time when you type, man, about hate mainstream that made him and all the other pros. So I've never actually went after any of those folks. I don't even talk about them. I think I've made a couple tweets about Mark Brooks because he actually came at me in a tweet exchange at one point, but um, I am not going to police other people in a group or just in general. Yeah, there may be some individuals that take shots at these people or critique them, whatever. They're free to do that, just like you have critiqued me and essentially went at me at tweets, right? So it's kind of hypocritical. But again, if you follow what I tweet, what I say on YouTube, I don't actually go after mainstream creators. Like I've critiqued some books and some things that people have said, but definitely not in any gang and don't attack anyone. And the word attack has been so, I don't know, bastardized too that people say, oh, I've been attacked. And don't get me wrong, I've misspoke and used that word in, in an improper fashion. But it's just that that word has been just overused and overabused. Just like being a, culture war, being a warrior, like really, or being a culture war or culture war soldier. Like, come on, don't bastardize the word soldier or the word war. I mean, that's just disrespectful to those that have actually been in war and what war actually is. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Tevin says his current draft is going well, halfway through the second chapter. Nice, making progress. That's all you can do. Got a couple pages done myself on my comic script and did some tweaks as well to my initial or well my current draft in regards to the first four chapters of the comic. So really, really happy with how it's progressing and all the changes that are going. It's a lot of fun. And you are only pro when you are still in the game and it's not what you've done before. It's what you are done currently. It's hard to edit your tweets while I'm talking because otherwise I have to talk improperly if I actually say it as you have typed it. But anyways, yeah, I'm working on a comic currently and I'm working on making the best comic possible and that's all that matters. K-pop junkie, what's going on? So shout out to K-pop here. She has her own channel where she promotes a ton of folks. She was kind enough to promote my comic and have me on there when I was in my first 60 days, and it got me a lot of backers. So that was fantastic. Also got to meet her in person at the Motor City Comic Con a couple months back, which was really cool. I haven't really gotten to meet many backers and folks in the community in real life at conventions or events and all that. So that was, really cool. So, all right. All right. Reply guy. I mean, Niobe says, you like EVS? Yes, I do. And he does these things sometimes, sure. But again, I'm not going to police what he says or does. And some things that you may view as attacks, others may view as critique. And sometimes there's truth in critique. So, no, I'm not guilty or responsible for other people's actions because I don't believe in guilt by association. I'm sure there are shitty people that you associate with, and I've never judged you for that. Actually, I know there are people I don't like that you associate with currently, even, and I don't judge you based off of that. So it's like watching your friend bully a kid in school, but just stand there and watch. We're adults on the internet, of all things. We're talking parasocial relationships and networks. You have the ability to block people, to simply not listen to them, to ignore them. But for some reason, people can't seem to do that, especially when it comes to EBS. They have to just keep trying to slap and poke the bear, essentially. And if you say things that make it really easy for you to be made fun of, criticized, well, sometimes you ask for it, especially when people say really stupid shit. And guilt by association is stupid shit, literally. I've done what? Agitators unite. All right. Christopher Bouchard, how's it going? Welcome. And yeah, comic is going great. Got some character designs going. I'm about 17 pages deep now in the script. Done several revisions so far. Just enjoying it. Wish I had more time to work on it, but definitely excited to get this thing going this year. Yep. Yeah, I don't know if I'll do many cons this year. I move so frequently that it's hard to commit to conventions. So I don't know what's slated for this year, but definitely going to try to get out there and get in front of people in person. That definitely generates a lot of sales, and is really good for building your brand and getting the word out there on your book. So I'd highly recommend it for everybody, whether it's little book events, which I've done a ton of those, which can actually be more fruitful than big conventions even, but definitely give conventions a shot. Um, yeah, got to try everything other than AI, of course. They attack Marvel and DC and the fine folks that work there all the time. Comicsgate is a cancer. Again, hyperbole, using the word attack. A lot of times that actually means criticize. And from what I've seen, I mean, there are bad actors in the mainstream too. Don't act like everyone is an angel there. But again, I don't judge the entire, both companies based off the actions of a few. That's ridiculous. And a lot of times it's folks criticizing Marvel and DC as companies. And I've stated this before in tweets and stuff. I don't hate Marvel or DC. Why would I? I mean, look at the shit on my wall, right? Their characters, their legacy books have inspired me. They've given me a lot of entertainment. They've gotten me through tough times. I love a lot of their characters and their content. What I hate is the direction that they're going in and the creative direct decisions that they've made in the past 10 years, especially, right? The standards by which they hire people now, um, the direction that they've went with their films, for example. So, but I don't hate them as companies. I want them to turn around. I want them to start giving everyone a fair shake and actually reviewing submissions based off of merit and quality and not silly things like what's your gender and how diverse is your book and all this nonsense. So a lot of times people are just critiquing. Sometimes it's creators, which again, you're allowed to critique others. It's free speech, free country and all that. But you're also able to critique titles and companies. So not an attack in most cases. No, we don't have to police each other. That's silly, right? Think I've read everything you've typed so far. Hey, what's going on, Dr. Ben? Welcome. You think Diamond going bankrupt is another example of go broke, go broke? Maybe to an extent. I mean, they are a distributor. I mean, they're distributing what's available. Of course, to an extent, they are pushing certain titles more than others, but I think in the end, it's just some bad business decisions. And I mean, comics, right? They're just not as lucrative as they used to be or as popular as they used to be, especially in person, right? In comic shops, especially with the internet and digital options, and the fact that, most people that love comics, that collect them, are right 30 plus, especially 40 plus. And so, the newer generation of folks, they're obsessed with video games and Instagram, things that are digital. And so I think over time we're gonna have less and less younger people collecting comics, going to comic shops, unfortunately. Um, so I think that's part of it as well. Obviously, I hope things change. I think someone will either purchase Diamond, or something will happen. I think things will continue as is, but it's not a good sign. And to me, this is just more proof that the mainstream, right, the DC, Marvel, and all that, they need to revamp what they're doing, right? They need to focus on creators like Silvestri and others, Miller, that can actually bring people back into comic shops, that can actually get folks to buy physical comic books. I think Absolute Batman and all of that did a good job, at least, in getting folks' interest peaked. I haven't read them myself, so I can't really comment on the content, but right, new logo design, different style of Batman, different take on the storylines, at least got people intrigued. And I think it did help sales and all of that. So I think they need more of that, in terms of doing things differently, or at least, again, they need to get a better focus on quality versus like politics and such. So I think it's a symptom. It's partially due to that, but not because of Diamond themselves. More so the companies like DC and Marvel. So Niobe says, "Why is it so many people hate EBSBA? And why is comics a spot to make fun of people that is not what comics is about?" I mean, that happens in any medium or any competitive space. I mean, it happens in sports, obviously. Fans make fun of one another, athletes make fun of one another. Uh, I mean, that stuff's not my cup of tea. But I mean, there are tons of people that hate certain famous actors or famous athletes. It kind of comes with the territory of fame. And when it comes to comics, he is famous. When it comes to indie comics, he's especially famous. So, and there are a lot of people that uh, are scorned in terms of, maybe they didn't get what they wanted out of him, or they're upset that their projects didn't fund the way they did. There could be a lot of reasons that, in my opinion, are not valid reasons. And I also think that the word hate is so hyperbolized and bastardized at this point too. I surely hope people don't actually hate others because of comics and such things. That's just sad, in my opinion. So, if you think that you're a tourist, that's another word that gets tossed around too. No, I'm not a tourist. I am investing a lot of time and money into the craft, and I am hiring real people. I am not outsourcing any efforts to AI, bullshit like that. I'm also trying to hire top talent in the space versus trying to save money and outsourcing it to lower cost countries and all that stuff. Um, all of those things that I mentioned that I'm not doing is something that maybe a tourist would do. That they just want to cash grab. They want to try to make money in indie comics versus trying to make the most out of their story because they absolutely love their story and characters. That's what I'm doing. If that makes me a tourist, then great. I love tourism. K-pop junkie says, "I don't care about any of that. I welcome anyone on my show. I just ask that people talk about the book that they're on." Yep. And see, that's the thing. Even though I'm CG, I associate with CG, obviously, and all that. I will bring people on my show that aren't CG. I am friends with people that aren't CG. I don't really care if someone is CG or not. Uh, for me, it's about what they say, what their intentions are, and the only thing that would prevent me from bringing someone on my show or interacting with them is if they're anti CG, or they're explicitly trying to cancel people or prevent them from getting backers, things of that nature. Like, yeah, that's I'm not gonna be a part of that. Bring them on my show. Now, I know what you will say, and some other people will say, and I always say, like, "Oh well, people lose backers as a result of criticism or this infighting and all that." Well, I do give an exception to slapbacks. I do think that if someone comes at you, makes accusation, bully, right? In your words, those types of things. I think you have the right to slap back however you see fit. I mean, obviously there are lines that shouldn't be crossed, right? Families and things like that. But if you view that as an attack, well, I disagree because I think people have every right to not only stand up for themselves, but also their properties, their books. I mean, I've already ran into that as a small creator, right? Someone just trying to basically smear your book and spread misinformation about it so that they can make you look bad, right? And they can try to draw some attention to themselves so that they can get on streams, get some a little bit of clout and all that nonsense, right? Um, it's it's absurd. And again, that's not my cup of tea, but you see that on every level, and I think everyone has the right to respond, defend themselves, but I'm not responsible for how other people respond. I have my own way. I like to just communicate, maybe have a debate, try to be respectful and all that, but not everyone's me. So, all right, man, there's just so many frigging comments. Yeah, I don't have a leader. That's absurd. The direction that mainstream comics is better than anything that CG has ever produced. Really, then why are several legends in CG raising hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in crowdfunding? Hmm? And if those guys were still working for the mainstream, I guarantee you the mainstream numbers would be up. You can't tell me that all or most of the mainstream is putting out art that's better than Graham Nolan, than Aaron Lopresti, than EVS, than Dale Keown, you name it. Even smaller creators are some of us are putting out better books, better looking art than some of the mainstream books. But you can lick the mainstream boot, I guess, if you want. If you think that's gonna get you in, doesn't mean you're gonna make money. I mean, there's plenty of people in the mainstream that are not making much money. And I think there's folks too that wouldn't want to go back to the mainstream because they would make less money. So, no, I'm not. And I know a lot of people, if not most, that are not against any community, any group of people. That's just disgusting, is what that is. That's actually an attack. I mean, oh, jeez, that nonsense is unbelievable. That people would make such an accusation. A lot of people try to hide it under the guise of being a joke, but that is not okay to do to a mom, to a person in general, especially something as absurd as that. Ah, maybe amazing gaming productions. Welcome. How's it going? It's just like Paizo, the director of the games for major TTRPG company, attacks people he disagrees with saying JD Vance can give back his Pathfinder bikes or Pathfinder books. I'm sure it could potentially. They may scale back, how much is available. Definitely is going to affect the comic shops as well. So, yeah, Frost Comics, how's it going? I truly hate the Absolute Bat logo. I personally don't mind it. Actually, I'd have to find the image, but in The Dark Knight Returns, in a couple of the shots, the logo on Batman's suit is actually very, very similar to that. It's very blocky, right? Very rectangular with some spikes throughout it. So I almost feel like it was inspired by that. So I don't really have an issue with it. Me personally, I prefer the Batfleck, symbol from Batman vs Superman, Justice League, and all that. But hey, at least they're trying to do something, even if it brings people that are skeptical that are at least willing to buy it to check it out. That's a sale. I mean, at least they're doing something different. And yeah, and this is a good example of, there's a lot of people that I respect the hell out of that are not CG, but they'll converse with me, they'll support me, right? I'm the same way. There are plenty of people that don't want to be part of a group or whatever, and it's like, hey, that's fine. It's about your message, it's about how you treat other people, how you act, and your content as well. And there are folks, right, whether it's mainstream films or whatever, that like I'm not a fan of that director's politics or who they might be as a person, but I love their films, so I'm gonna keep consuming their films because I get enjoyment out of it. I'm not a purist in that sense. Um, it's not necessarily a redo. It's going to be a translation in the comic form, but there will be adjustments to make it fit the medium as well as possible. So it's kind of hard to explain. Obviously, don't want to give any spoilers away at this point too of the adjustments and modifications, but I definitely know that the folks that read the novels are really going to enjoy the extra visualization and how I change it into comic form. So Corey says, I think mainstream comics will do better if they put out more quality books. They may take longer to produce, but they will stand the test of time. Exactly. They need more books like The Dark Knight, The Killing Joke, right? Things of that nature. Things that are going to really pull back the traditional comic readers and potentially bring in new readers. And when I say new readers, I'm more specifically saying, people my age and younger that really, really got into comic book characters as a result of comic book movies. And a good example of this is look at comic book conventions, right? The last 15 years or so, a lot of the folks that are attending these conventions are there because of the movies. They wanted to cosplay and do all that stuff because they love the movies, but they never got into the comics really because of their age. Just like I never really got into comics as a kid, but it was more so because I wasn't by a comic shop and all that. But if you could get some really intriguing titles out there with some of the legacy characters and some killer names to it, again like Moore, Miller, Silvestri, etc., then you will get your sales up. Absolutely. If you had another Killing Joke come out, that would sell like crazy. But putting out some medium to low quality art books with names that aren't that recognizable is not going to help them unless like it's a breakout talent. Um, so yeah, I agree with that. All right. Well, I'll have to come back to the comic comments because there's just so many of them, which this is awesome. I mean, last week I had quite a few comments, and it's hard for me to not click on every single one because I want everyone to be seen and all that. But yeah, I can't believe I'm to the point where I actually can't keep up with the chat. No, we don't. That's just nonsense. Find anywhere where I have hated anybody or anything. I mean, that's just complete hyperbole. Then why are their sales down? Why isn't everyone raving about the quality of mainstream books? There's a reason. All right. So, what should we do first? So let's go ahead and do the BA recommend segment here. That we can give you guys some recommendations because again, I don't hate the mainstream, whether it's comics, film, or all that. Um, I want to actually recommend good stuff to people so that they have content that they can enjoy instead of dwelling on all of the rage bait. And that'll be the topic after that. So let's go into that segment. Yeah, I guess he's trying to debate me through comments. I mean, I told him I would debate him. I mean, my only stipulation was, it should be on a third party channel, but he had demands. He's like, I want to debate you. And I said, sure. But it has to be on my channel, my terms, my control. Like, that's not a debate. That's ridiculous. Um, I said, hey, let's do it on Frost Comics channel or something, right? Someone that can be middle of the road, but no, people like that, they can't have a proper debate. They want to be able to mute you, talk over you, take control of it, monetize it, and all that. It's like, no, you want to have a debate anytime on a third party channel for sure. Ah, Alistair says he'll be putting in an order at the end of the month. Awesome. I appreciate that. Yeah, it'd be awesome to have a book all the way over in Scotland. Hell yeah. And yeah, perfect timing. Yeah, I'll be closing out the campaign at the end of February. So, all right, into my recommendations for the week. So, first one is actually an indie comic. It is Bronze Star by Mike Barron, which is a guy that Niobe actually was trying to, I guess, cancel, according to his tweets, and didn't like that Mike actually has a book that's being published through Niobe's publisher. So yeah, don't agree with cancel culture at all. But anyways, this book was fantastic. And I'm not just saying that to, you know, fluff up Mike Barron, but I'm not a fan of westerns in general, really. I mean, I watched a lot of old like westerns, right? John Wayne and all of that when I was a kid because my grandpa, and my dad loved western movies, so I enjoyed the old fashioned western films. But modern films, comics, just never been attracted to westerns. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna find out if Mike, as a writer, can actually provide me something that I would enjoy as a western. Because you know what? If someone can interest me or entertain me in a genre that I'm not interested in, then that means they're a really good writer. And Mike is a really good writer. So this book, it had fantastic pacing and a fantastic storyline. Had a nice, supernatural twist to it, and just a really smooth mystery to the story throughout the entirety, where you're really trying to, you know, kind of figure out some of the clues that are dropped, throughout the book, and you just really want to know what's going on with this werewolf and this mysterious creature that they call the Volcrum. And so, yeah, you're intrigued throughout the whole story to figure out what's going to happen. And it just had some really fun humor as well throughout it. And the art was really, really good. It just was really traditional, looked old fashioned, right? It really fit the style of, being a Western. I had some really good pinup pages and art as well, but yeah, just gnarly looking wolf, werewolf throughout the story. And yeah, I just did a fantastic job with the art, the colors, and the story. And like I said, not a fan of westerns, but Mike was able to do such a good job to where I actually really enjoyed the book, and I hope there's another one. I'm not sure if it's a standalone or not, but yeah, fantastic book. Highly recommend folks check it out. Even if you're not into westerns, definitely check it out. And I have a couple of his Nexus books to read soon, so definitely excited for those. But again, this is a guy right here that is putting out books as an indie that are better than a lot of what the mainstream is putting out. And he was in the mainstream, right? He worked on titles like The Flash and The Punisher. This guy knows what he's doing. So definitely go check that out. So that's my indie comic recommendation for the week. My mainstream or legacy comic recommendation for the week is The Dark Knight 3, The Master Race. Of course, I absolutely love anything that Miller does essentially, but his Dark Knight run was just absolutely prime. Um, Dark Knight Returns I'd say that is my favorite comic of all time, at least at the moment. Dark Knight Strikes Again was really, really good. It had a lot more characters thrown into it, right? He was, expanding into the universe of characters with DC, but his introduction to the question and some of the inner monologue and dialogue that the question was involved in was just awesome. And there were some just brutal scenes with how he left his mark on Lex Luthor and all of that. A really good introduction to Lex in that. But the Master Race though was a really nice buttoning up of that saga essentially. And in Dark Knight Returns, you have where basically Batman and Superman are at odds. Superman is too much of a Boy Scout, right? He is the lapdog of the American government. He's not necessarily thinking for himself and doing what he thinks is best for humanity. He's more concerned with keeping things calm politically. Whereas Batman, of course, is a true vigilante. He doesn't give a shit what the government thinks. He's trying to do what's best for people and for the city of Gotham. But what was really great about the Master Race is it did a good job reconstructing Superman and putting him in a proper final form, right? Where he is all about just protecting humanity, thinking independently, and working closely with Batman to do what's best. And he's choosing humanity over essentially the evil Kryptonians and their pseudo god that's trying to take over the Earth. And it did a really good job of bringing Carrie or Batgirl into, Batman bring or Batwoman bring her into form, and having her really take that mantle over essentially. And you can just see her turning more and more into the Dark Knight, in terms of just being willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done and stand up for humanity. And yeah, they did a really good job too with Hal Jordan and the Flash and the Atom, and it was just a really good buttoning up of that storyline and some fantastic art. Right, had Adam Kubert throughout it, and a lot of great scenes with Laura and the expanded family of Superman. But just an absolute awesome book. So highly recommend this, of course. Anything that Frank Miller has done, but especially his Dark Knight run, definitely check that out. And then our final item would be a mainstream TV show. So I would assume most people have heard of this show. If not, well, you're welcome. Peaky Blinders. This is, in my opinion, the best Netflix show ever to be created. With Stranger Things probably being a decently close runner up, but there is going to be a movie. I think it does come out this year. I think they're going to have it in theaters, I hope. But this show did such a job in recreating that time period. It was like early 1900s gangs in Great Britain, UK, and just really, really gritty series with a phenomenal casting and obviously led by uh, Cillian Murphy, who is just one of my favorite actors, right? He was in Inception, Oppenheimer, pretty much every Christopher Nolan film, but they did a really good job recreating the scenery, the vibe of that time period, and just all the horrible shit that was going on during that time period, right? With the influx of communism and, I mean, diseases, peddling drugs, and all that. Obviously, it's morally gray characters, right? It's not like a vigilante show or anything that's gonna, I guess, give you good feelings, but it's highly entertaining. There are some scenes that are a little over the top violence wise and sexually and all that, but they do such a good job on the storyline and the character arcs that, in my case, I'm going to overlook, some of those aspects that I'm not a fan of. But I think there was around 7 or so seasons, and they keep you intrigued throughout every season. There's a lot of great buildup from season to season, and highly, highly recommend this show. Um, yeah, it can be rough at times to watch, Don't go into it thinking like, oh yeah, these guys are going to be like heroes and all that. No, you're gonna hate them sometimes. You're gonna love them sometimes. They do good things at moments, and then they do horrible things at other moments. But just fantastic writing, fantastic casting. It's one of those shows where like you really want a lot of the main characters to live because they just do such a good job on the acting. So highly recommend it. Obviously, it's on Netflix, and there's a movie coming out this week. So those are my three recommendations. Give you something indie, give you some mainstream items, and hopefully give you guys some entertainment if you haven't seen them before. All right. Check in with the chat again. We have Lady, welcome. Said he didn't mind the show, but some of it was problematic. Yep. Yep. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like for me, um, and I know I get shit for this, but Game of Thrones, I'm sure the story is fantastic, but that's one where I just have no interest in watching because there's just too much weird shit, incest, sex scenes, and all of that. Where I'm just like, nah. There's a limit. Shows like Peaky Blinders, films like Oppenheimer, they do a good job of there's enough to where like you can tolerate it. It's not too weird, and but the story and the acting is so good that you're like, yep, this is worth sticking out and it'll leave an impression on you. Another one, even though I'm a huge fan of Zack Snyder, obviously, Twilight of the Gods had a really good storyline, great animation, some really good dialogue. I enjoyed the story, but just some of the overuse of sex scenes and just weird perversions and stuff. I was just like, it got to be too much to where like I got annoyed about three-quarters of the way in, and I was like, nah, it's not worth it. You know, maybe it'll change over time, but that's just not my cup of tea. So I'll stick to his other films and stuff that I love. So I do have some lines where I'm just like, yeah, it's either too much or not. But Peaky Blinders fits within those lines, and yeah, just fantastic. We have Katie. Welcome. How's it going? Thank you for being here. Yeah, Corey's a Game of Thrones fan. Yeah, and I know Corey's a huge Berserk fan. I have not read it myself. I do really like the art, and I like the inspiration it's provided Corey in his style. But yeah, I know there's some stuff in that as well where it may be a bit too over the top for me personally. But yeah, yep. What's going on, Frog Tony? Welcome. Thanks for being here. Nope, not calling you out. You're not anti CG. All right. So let's get into the main topic, which is rage baiters. You could also call them rage merchants. This is an unfortunate phenomenon that I think has taken over the internet for the last, well, essentially 10 years, especially with politics and mainstream content, right? You have new age or modern film and video game critics and political commentators, right? They just thrive on triggering their audience to the extent that they can't help but engage through them. Super chats, you name it. They want to constantly basically trigger their audience into a reaction, whether it's annoyance, being pissed off, you name it, disgust. And they just keep applying the same buzzwords and thumbnails over and over and over again. Right? There's not a lot of creativity behind what they do. They just know the trigger points essentially to their audience, what's going to get them to watch, what's going to get them to engage, and they get those sweet rage bucks from it. And that's one thing you'll notice, obviously, with Twitter or X, that that's really brought them to life, right? Because now people can get paid for tweeting, for getting engagement. And so you have folks constantly rage baiting, trying to get engagement, a lot of times spreading propaganda, lies, or simply just tickling the taint of Elon and others constantly just so that they can get those retweets or somehow get the clout on the internet. And Obviously in the indie space, right, we're seeing it in comics and we're seeing it in film, especially in TV. Anything tied to Disney, Star Wars, MCU, right? You've heard all the clickbait phrases and whatnot. And there's it's one thing to have a bit of a balance. And I've talked about this in the past where you can have a balance where you complain about some things that you've seen that you don't like, hopefully go into some detail about why and how it could be done differently. Give examples of movies that have done it properly. Um, give examples of things that exist currently, whether it's in the mainstream or indie, that is countering what you claim is garbage, right? Is slop, is whatever buzzword you want to use. But you'll notice they don't really do that much. It's pretty much 75%, even 90, 95 plus percent just complaining, just baiting folks into having a reaction, getting annoyed, getting mad, and complaining about Disney, complaining about DC, complaining about Marvel, Star Wars, you name it. And then you'll get all these stupid thumbnails like, they hate us, they want us dead, MCU, make it make it female, blah blah blah. But very few of them are willing to actually create something, right? If they're actual experts in storytelling or critiquing films, right, they should know the tweaks and changes that need to be made or the guidelines that should be followed in order to produce what they claim that they want. Yeah, Eric says, yeah, they can't stand this. They can't stand us. Oh gosh. Um, but for some reason, you don't really see them creating anything monumental, anything that actually stands out to counter what they claim is garbage. You'll see some people make attempts, but in a lot of cases, they do exactly what they say the mainstream is doing in a negative manner, right? We've seen creators where they're constantly like, oh, they're just constantly doing girl bosses, feminine leads. They're just turning everything gay and this, that, and the other. Meanwhile, all of their books are primarily a female lead and feminine. I wonder why. It's because you're just trying to chase sales? Hmm. If you actually stood by your message and your complaints that much, like, wouldn't you have a strong male lead, bring traditionalism into the story and all that? But for some reason, you're actually doing what you criticize that the mainstream is doing. So that's very ironic when that happens. And you see it a lot. They'll say, "Oh, the storytelling is horrible, the art is horrible, cinematography is horrible," and then when they create their indie version of it, it's just as bad, if not much worse. They're not willing to invest in top-notch artists, editors, you name it, in order to do it better. But they'll still get sales from the rage baiting because all they'll do is, yeah, look at how shitty they're doing it, but look at my books instead. And they'll get sales as a result of it. But those books, they don't end up breaking out, being anything monstrous in the market, right? And the thing too is, I highly doubt most of them actually want change to happen, even when it comes to politics, right? Because if things were to change and they were to suddenly have this utopia where everything was conservative, for example, or every Disney movie was phenomenal. Star Wars returned to its original glory, right? There was no MCU, it was M M he or whatever, right? How would they make those rage bucks? They wouldn't be able to. I think this environment is actually preferable to a lot of them because it's how they've made their careers and they're cashing in on the rage. But I would love to see that scenario, right, where it's like they get everything they want, or they claim that they want, right, that they say, and then suddenly the clicks drop off, And they have, I mean, they would have to just talk about how awesome everything is, but suddenly the money is not there. That would be very interesting to see. I'm sure it will never happen, obviously, with the creative direction that a lot of these companies are going. But obviously, they've found their sweet spot. They know exactly what to say, how to say it. But what's really unfortunate is just how gullible the general audience can be. And what's really, I noticed that's the most sad is that more and more people are unable to think for themselves. So, for example, movies. Traditionally, right, you would just see that, oh, a movie's going to be releasing. I'm going to check out the trailer. You would watch the trailer and make a judgment off of that trailer. And then you'd be like, oh, I think that might be worth my time. I'll go check it out or I won't. Right. What you're seeing now is that folks are not even willing to watch the trailer before getting all this commentary from all the rage baiters. And they will actually make their decision based off of that rage bait. Are you kidding me? And then they'll applaud said rage baiter, rage merchant, when they are at the theater funding the very companies and the very movies that they claim are garbage, laughing about it. Yeah, I just paid for tickets and gave them, $20. Ha ha ha. The movie was so bad. That You're there watching it. Like, how embarrassing is that? But they're not embarrassed because they're getting that money. And there are a lot of really good movies that have been overlooked because of that. Movies that are doing what those rage baiters claim they want, right? Great storytelling, great cinematography, CGI, and all that. And so they're purposely missing out on it because they're relying on these folks' commentary versus just making a decision based on their own interests and what is actually in front of their own eyes with the trailer. Great examples would be the latest Planet of the Apes, Furiosa, right? Everybody gave so much shit and complained so much about Furiosa. Why? Because it had a female lead, but it had the same quality and great storytelling that Mad Max Fury Road had. And really, even though it was technically a female lead, the focus wasn't just solely on her and it wasn't like a girl boss, right? It was telling an origin story of one of the main characters that really ties in the origin of the entire universe in and of itself. It was a great movie. And a lot of people ended up being pissed off because they're like, all these people pissed on this movie, made it all political and all that, claimed that the film studio was being woke and blah blah blah, right? When in fact it was just a great story that happened to be based around one of the female characters. There are plenty of great stories throughout time that had a female lead. It's whether or not they told the story properly, right? Whether or not they did the story justice. There's a difference between, having a female lead and having a girl boss or a Mary Sue, etc. Furiosa's not a girl boss or a Mary Sue by any stretch of the imagination. And so, as a result of that, there are a lot of fantastic films that don't raise the money or don't get the sales that they should have. And as a result, you're going to end up in the long term getting less of those films, which counters what these folks claim that they're fighting for or doing their content for. I mean, even Oppenheimer, I remember folks complaining about that, and that was an absolute masterpiece, just like every Nolan film. But they found things to complain about versus, like, hey, you have some really, really good movies. Well, actually, what you should probably do is save your commentary until you've actually seen it. Unless the trailer, right, like The Flash, for example, the trailer was horrible. The CGI looked horrible. It looked goofy as hell. I could understand why you would make commentary on that, but still, I would say, like, hey, let folks check it out, make their own assessment. But the thing is, they're jumping the gun on everything now, and they're so hyper focused on anything that looks potentially bad that they just use that as an avenue to just get that engagement instead of waiting until they've actually seen it, made a make a proper assessment or analysis, and then provide that to the audience. But maybe let the audience see it first, and then when you give your commentary, right? Then those folks will actually be able to relate to it because they've actually seen it. And then they'll be able to give an informed decision on if what you said is bullshit or not. But right now, the folks are not even able to cut through the bullshit because they're not actually seeing the content to see if what they're saying is right or not. They are just becoming basically drones. They're like, but they said it's garbage. Ha ha ha. So I'm not going to see it. And in a lot of cases, they miss out on great movies, and then those movies don't raise as much money as they should, or they don't get as high of sales as they should, which means the studio is less likely to make more of those films. So you have to ask yourselves, are they purposely shooting themselves in the foot, or is there an agenda behind it? Why they're doing such content? And the other thing is, it's creating this plethora of clones. You're seeing all of these small YouTubers pop up that are just trying to duplicate exactly what these popular YouTubers are doing. So, well, minus the editing skills, the team, and wittiness and whatnot. And so you're just seeing all these people copycatting at every level what these folks are doing, which just spreads this disease, right? This just brain rot approach towards film, towards content. And you're just seeing more and more people spread this mindset to where folks are not they're not making proper assessments of trailers and all of that and just finding out from themselves if it's good. The other thing too is, okay, you want to shit on Star Wars and all that. I'll give you that. Star Wars has not been good for a long time for the most part. Star Trek and all that. What about the films that are fantastic? Why aren't you dedicating, for that time period when that film is about to come out, when it comes out after, why not do some extensive streams or videos about that to try to make sure as many people see that as possible, right? Wouldn't you want that to make as much money as possible so that you can basically that's your message or your signal to those studios that I want more of that. Give me more of that, right? Do reviews, leave reviews on all those sites, right? Send them a message that this is what I want. So again, films like Oppenheimer, for example, they should have, in my opinion, pushing that like hell. That movie should have made 1.5 billion. It was that good. But and wouldn't you want your massive audience to actually be entertained, right? Wouldn't you want them to get that enjoyment? You should be sharing that feedback. You should be pushing them to get in those seats so that those movies get as much sales as possible so you can have more of it, right? Have some balance between showing your audience and proving to them of what is bad in the mainstream, but on the flip side, show them what is good and why and push them to consume it so that you can get more of it. And that's why I'm trying to have a balanced approach in terms of when I do videos, when I'm doing streams, I want to give recommendations to people so that they can just have enjoyment. I love when you stumble upon, even if it's a very old show or movie, it gives you a movie night with the family or the wife, gives you something to step away from how shitty the world is or how shitty the world can be. But so many people are in this spin cycle of just being pissed about what's in showing out in the films, what's showing out in comics, in politics. And it's because there are so many rage baiters all over on every topic, just winding people up. And on top of that, what's happening is the discourse on Twitter, on social media becomes vile because people just do knee jerk reactions, start calling people names, just going nuts over sometimes just a basic opinion because they're so wound up and just hating or what's could be perceived as hate, um, all this content versus just having basic conversations talking about what you do or don't like about these films. People just go to hyperbole and this is garbage, this is that. Can't have basic conversations, and it's just, again, it's winding everyone up, and it's creating all these clone creators. And can you imagine if it was like this back in the 80s and 90s when there was so much great entertainment? If all the movies that we and music and shows that we love now that got to continue, they got season after season, new show after new show, etc. What if the folks like this would have existed back then? What if the internet existed? They may not have got the viewership they did. They may not have gotten the sales they did, and we may not have all this phenomenal content that we have today. And yeah, like Eric is saying, yeah, we had Siskel and Ebert, right, that would give honest, detailed feedback about movies that in a lot of cases would bring more people into seats because they would highlight stuff that they would love. And we need more of that versus what we are getting today. And yeah, I mean, politics is the perfect example of all these folks. And you're seeing a lot of folks that are essentially wearing costumes online, right? You have um, liberals acting as if they're conservatives and baiting people into conservative talking points, conservative, um, I don't know, clickbait and all of that. When in reality, they're actually liberals, right? They found that sweet spot to rile people up, get that engagement, get paid on Twitter, get paid via YouTube, and all of that. And a lot of times, they're a bleeding heart liberal, and people will find out 5, 10 years later, and then those people that worshipped them, they end up feeling like idiots. Because yeah, a lot of these folks are hypocrites. They don't actually believe in their message. They don't actually believe in changing the culture, improving things. And that's why I hate the phrase culture warrior and all of that, because a lot of them are opportunists. They know what they're doing. If they actually wanted to change culture, right, they would be trying to. Oh, they'd be talking about topics, pushing for legislation and things like that that would prevent kids from being exposed to things that they should not be exposed to, for example, right? Changing the things that are being taught in school, getting back to traditionalism, um, pushing for traditional content, traditional heroes, things of that nature. But you don't really see them fighting for that. If they do, a lot of times it's in a joking manner, and they're pushing some BS stuff about how Superman is, he was a conservative, he was a Christian, and to think other blah blah blah. Right? It's bait in order to get engagement versus you know great example would be Ayn Rand and George Orwell. Right? They didn't need to be hyperbolic. They didn't need to act like jackasses to get their message across. What did they do? They wrote phenomenal books, made phenomenal speeches that resonated with people. For them, it was all about the message and actually getting it in front of people and relaying it in a manner that folks could connect to, and it could make an impact on them where they would want to go out and spread that message as well. But it wasn't about spreading just rage, right? Ayn Rand didn't create her books to just so folks would go out just spewing hate about communism or whatever. For them, it was about pushing optimism, pushing change, pushing individualism, a lot of the tenets that would actually help people, humanity, society. And, and like for George Orwell's case, right, trying to give people some foresight into what the future might hold, what society could look like if we don't counter certain things in society and in culture. That's what we need more of, right? How do we get back to actually professionally and, you know, being able to push a message and connect with an audience versus just riling them up, pissing them off, and having the focus be around just money and clout. But really, when you think of folks today, like how many people today are are like Ayn Rand, for example? I mean, you really can't think of too many, especially when it comes to politics and all that. And I don't think they would have held up very well in terms of viewership, getting readers, getting attention towards their message if they were in today's society. Because again, they were not trying to rile folks up. They were not trying to get people to hate things or whatnot. So it's really unfortunate. But if folks actually want to improve culture, they want to. I mean, they need to look towards what is the Eastern European countries doing. What are some of the Asian countries doing? What are their focus? What's their focus on in order to preserve their cultures? Those are the things that we should try to emulate and take notice to, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to change the direction that our culture and country is going in. That's the only way you're going to change the mainstream is by doing it better, not focusing on like, well, how can I get the most sales, right? Well, maybe if I cater to this narrative or put in this type of character, or maybe I'll bend here or there, that's fine, right? I'll get more sales then, right? And then I can push more of my message. No, how about you put your money where your mouth is, or put your morals and your culture where your mouth is, and inject that and your message and your beliefs into your books and prove that you can make something better, make something impactful, just like Ayn Rand did, just like George Orwell did, right? Just like Tolkien did. Make something that stands out that can last decades and impact the future and the present. Not, how can I be an opportunist and get the most out of the moment, financially and attention. Folks, a lot of folks are too focused on clout and fame and not actually changing the culture, preserving art, or making beautiful art. And AI is kind of that litmus test to see like who actually respects and loves these mediums, who actually respects and loves art and storytelling. To me, if you're willing to take shortcuts and let a machine do the work for you, you might not, in my opinion, respect the medium all that well. You may not actually love it that much. Maybe you just love money more, which, you know, money can lead to many evils, and I think it can also twist and contort culture and society. And I think that is what's happening to America, unfortunately, and a lot of other Western nations as well. So let's see here. I think that about covers that topic. Oh yeah, I mean the other thing too, I kind of hinted at that, but wanted to dive into a little bit more is right whether it's I think inadvertently or even accidentally, these rage baiters are training people to only focus on the negative aspects of entertainment. So that when they see a film, they'll find a couple things that they don't like, but they'll hyper focus on it so much that they'll just say, "Oh, this is garbage. This is shit," right? When the overarching story may have been really good, the acting may have been phenomenal, but they'll just throw the entire movie or book out just because of one or two aspects. They're not able to judge it as a whole, give it a proper assessment, and as a result, again, a lot of things are not getting the sales or funding that they should. So, all right, let's check it out in the chat. That was my weekly rant. All right. See, we have more ridiculous statements from reply guy. And yes, I say a joke, right? A reply guy. That's about as harsh as I'm going to get. But what to me is really sad is, I have a in real life friend that is friends with Niobe, right? He's not CG. However, he has commissioned several CG artists for cover art and such, and it's like the some of the best art he's ever had tied to his books, and he's made some great relationships as a result. But again, he's able to right interact with, respect folks from different areas or corners of the indie space, and Niobe had seemed to be the same way for almost 2 years, and then all of a sudden that changed, right? The whole guilt by association and the whole, um, you know, claiming that people are in a cult and all that narrative came out. So, I think one thing that's happening is you do have folks that I think they're virtue signaling as a way to try to get into the mainstream, right? Like, hey, I hate that group. I'm one of the good ones. Yeah, I'll fit in right in with the mainstream. Like, if I can virtue signal enough, I could get attention of one of those virtue signal virtue signalers in the mainstream. And what's funny is some of the folks are they claim to be conservatives, but they're trying to virtue signal to get the attention of some liberals that are pushing things that go completely against what they claim their beliefs are to be. And I think that's why you'll see some ramp up of narratives and um, verbiage towards CG is simply like, "Hey, look at me! I'm fighting the good fight. I'm anti CG. I'm made for the mainstream. I got to get in the mainstream." Like, I don't know. Maybe is it because the crowdfunding isn't going as well as you'd hoped? And if you've been doing it for many, many years, why haven't you gotten the attention of the mainstream? I don't know, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to get hired or get into a company as a result of what I say, right? Whether that's pushing a message or virtue signaling, trying to cancel people, right? I would want to get into a company or get a break because my book was that amazing, because the characters were that intriguing. I want it to be based off of merit and quality, not things that I've said. So I don't know. It's sad if folks are trying to get in the mainstream with such a method. Yeah. Yep. There's a lot of that happening, of course. EVS is guilty of all you just said and has been doing it for 8 years. Don't you think that's 7 years too long? Again, I'm not responsible for what he says or does. There's a lot of stuff that he says that I agree with. There are some things that he says that I don't agree with. And that's the other thing. Look, these agitators will claim that we're in a cult. We have a hive mind. Yet they don't realize that no human being agrees with another human being 100%. It's literally impossible. No one has the exact same beliefs and opinions than any other human being on this earth. Virtually impossible. If you're an adult, you should realize that. And I'll give you a great example. I'm wearing this shirt. Huge fan of the Snyderverse, right? I love Batman vs Superman. I love Man of Steel. All of that. EVS does not. We have different opinions on movies. So what? I'm sure we could respectfully discuss the topic and walk away still liking each other. That's how it should be. But yeah, I don't agree with anything, everything that anyone says. Or, no one's views are 100% aligned. That's nonsense. Now that's bait. That's a known troll and agitator who wants to get me to say something about either side so that they can say that I am attacking them or hating on them. So, not falling for that one. I'll simply say I'm not interested in any of them. Look at me, look at what I can do. He's like Stewart from Mad TV. Look at what I can do. Uh, okay. Let's see. Hey, you're a big deal in the mainstream, Larry. Why are you punching down? Uh, we have Benjamin Soto. Welcome. I think he still has an active campaign on Fund My Comics, so definitely go check that out. He also interviews folks as well, so gotta respect that. And we need more of that. Look at this bait. Trying to dangle that hook out in front of me. Nope, not happening. My comic preserves the culture of cool comics. Shill. Yep. And definitely check out my stream from last week, the Dark Horse Discourse stream number 4. We went over Frost Comics' free comic. So definitely sub to his YouTube channel, go to his Twitter, and then, yeah, get your hands on his free digital comic, which was really good. Yeah. Yeah. And you'll see that too. Like people that are shitting on Martin in order to get their own book sales. Like they obsess over the fact that he hasn't finished his series. It's like, dude, just let the guy do what he wants. Like, are you that dependent on his book coming out in your life? I mean, okay, you didn't like the end of how the show, the end of the show or whatever, but it's like you should not be obsessing over whether or not he finishes his book or not. It has no impact on what you do. And yeah, we're seeing folks that are putting little comments in their published books about George R. R. Martin not finishing his book and all that. And it's like, really, you're just baiting people so you can get content. The guy can either finish his series or he doesn't. Like, it's up to him. And we have Algmill. Welcome. Seems to me that CG and not CG has become like the Hatfields and McCoy's feud. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think most of the people that are in CG, again, they don't care if other people are not in CG. They'll still interact with them, they'll still stream with them, they'll still hire them and all of that. It's just some of the like anti CG crowd are literally saying things like, I won't associate with anyone and like I'm at war with them. Just complete absurdity. So yeah. We have a real life rage baiter and agitator in the chat to demonstrate how it's done. Exactly. Yeah. It's great when what you're talking about, you have an actual example right there in the chat. uh, and yeah, Eric says, I disagree with the parts of both, but I enjoyed Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman. I do enjoy baiting Snyder Bros though. Trying to bait me. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. There's also a difference between poking some fun and jokes between like fan groups and stuff and like going off the deep end and like calling people absurd names and all of that. Now we have Jimmy the Lumberjack. Welcome. All right, so let's go ahead and get into. Well, I feel like we've been in the on the agitator segment this entire stream because some have been in the chat, which is expected. But let's take a look at some Twitter trash, shall we? All right, let me share my screen here. So these will cover some tweets and such by actually Niobe with his burner account. And thing is, I don't bring this up as I'm not like trying to pick on him or anything. It's just some of the points that come up are relative to a lot of the discussions that we have, and I think it's good to have conversation around some of these topics, despite how ridiculous some of them, these comments and stuff are. But let me get this pulled up. All right, so Twitterland. Let's take a look here. All right. So this is in these are some responses to my quality versus quantity clip that I had released, where of course I'm defending quality, saying you should not sacrifice quality to push quantity, and I get a chuckle out of the folks that are just like, yeah, look at how many books I'm pushing out each year. Like you should be impressed by this. You should come support me because I'm not taking X amount of years and blah blah blah. But their work looks quite subpar, and the art is nothing impressive. I would, and I've said this many times. Great example is Christopher Nolan. I would rather have a phenomenal film from a director every 3 to 4 years than some just generic middle of the road film once a year from that creator. I'd rather be wowed than that was fun any day. Same applies to comics for me and TV shows, all of that. So out of nowhere, like a lot of comments on Twitter, Niobe, under the now guise of the CG troll, uh-huh, says, so this is you sweeping for EVS with 4 year late books that makes the rest of us in crowdfunding look bad. His F ups hurt, BA hurt you, hurt me, and everyone else that does comics. So this is where I get a chuckle because they say, oh, he's your leader, he's your master, but you make it sound like your success is dependent on one other man, being him. Do you not see what's wrong with that? Especially if you say, right, the mainstream is where it's at. And if you believe you're where you need to be as a writer or a creator, then by all means submit to the big two and get in there. He has no impact on whether or not you get in the mainstream at all. He has no impact on your Kickstarter or your comics, especially since your comics are a completely different genre and style from his. So I think it's completely ridiculous to say that you can't succeed in crowdfunding because of him. His backers are just a portion of the indie market, essentially. He's getting, let's say, 2+ thousand, right? There are tens of thousands of potential backers that use these sites. Maybe they don't all support comics, but I'm sure there are tens of thousands of people that back crowdfunding campaigns between all the sites. So either you're not connecting with the right folks to get in front of a broader audience, or you're not marketing yourself properly. And I mean that in the sense that it's not grabbing people's attention, not in the corny sense of just using, marketing as a scapegoat, but it, it might just impact your ability to get his old backers that don't back him anymore. Otherwise, it doesn't impact you at all. In fact, you should want his current backers. He's getting thousands of backers. By going after him and CG as a whole, you are literally kneecapping yourself versus just being respectful in general to the entire indie space and being like, hey, I want everyone to read my book. Because when you say you're anti CG or that CG is your enemy, CG is also the audience, it's also the readers. So you're disrespecting a ton of potential backers. They're not potential anymore, pretty much, but you're disrespecting the backers, the creators, the audience, and you're purposely like just excluding them. Like I want everyone to read my books. I don't care what group you're in. I don't care what your political beliefs are. I want every single person to read my book. I am not anti any group, any political ideology. I don't care what your beliefs are. I want you to read my books. A, I want people to be entertained, but B, right, my beliefs, my morals, all of that part of my life is in that story. So wouldn't you want your story to impact them? If you want to influence them, if you want to change culture, right? If you really want to fight what you believe is not right, wouldn't you want people to be exposed to your books? Why would you purposely say, I don't want to market to this group of people, which is thousands of people? That is a horrible business decision in my mind. And that is going to prevent some growth. Like if you want to get into the mainstream, right? Wouldn't you want to be able to tell them, like, I raised $50,000, right? I raised however many dollars to impress them so they can go to your campaign and be like, holy crap, this must be a good book. Like, this is impressive. They don't know who your backers are. They don't know if they're CG or not. Why are you so afraid that they're going to find out what that your readers are CG? The mainstream should want CG to read their books as well, right? Sales are sales, readers are readers. So yeah, that's the start of this. I won't be able to go through all of them. There's, I mean, literally, it was like 3 hours straight of just reply, reply, reply. Like he's really going at it. But um, so I essentially just said, sounds like you're relying on him, which is ironic. And he said, I'm looking for him to quit YouTube and comics and stop making the industry look like fools. Where I really want to like do this with like a lisp or make the voice ridiculous, but um, where all he does is mock the people and for super chat money, brother. That is not what comics, and you should. That is not comics, and you should not stand. You should stand with me to combat it. Failure to do so means I lump you in with him. I mean, fine, you can lump me in with him. I mean, I associate with him, I stream with him, but I do not. Again, I'm not responsible for him or his actions, his words. I do not believe in guilt by association by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, unless like you're literally like, associating with like a horrible criminal or something like that, right? And like trying to defend that. But this is fucking indie comics, right? Like, uh, and I was just like, that's some feminine speak right there. Prove that you can be successful regardless of what he does. Get in the mainstream. He isn't there, so it shouldn't hold you back. And if you said the mainstream is high quality and so are your comics, why are you not there then? And then yeah, he says, well, I work through a publisher. I'm on all the bookshelves next to all the big names and all that. Well, that doesn't mean that your sales are there. It doesn't mean you're working for the big two either. And there's a lot of folks that are simply crowdfunding that have more backers than what some of the folks that are being published, you know, they're having higher sales in crowdfunding than some of these mainstream books are selling or published books or whatever. Yeah, this goes on and on and on. This right here is problematic, right? This right here is cancel culture. And so right here I said I said that, Antarctic Press, which is who publishes his work, has published work by CG creators. Yet you are still working with them. That's funny, right? If you were moral grandstanding as much as you claim to be, you say, I won't associate with anyone that's in CG, then wouldn't you leave your publisher, right? Because your publisher is publishing a CG book, but you're not. Why? Because you want those sales, you want that exposure to get into the mainstream. So you're willing to sacrifice on your claimed stance in order to be on those bookshelves. And he said that he bitched to the publisher about that. And in fact, we had a meeting about that. But let's be honest, Barron is not the problem. He barely makes a peep. But yeah, having that book with AP made us look bad. That book was removed from Kickstarter. It's bad PR. Hmm. So you're saying Barron is not the problem. So if he's not the problem, he's not a problem. Why do you have an issue with him being published through your publisher, right? With guilt by association. Oh, it was removed by Kickstarter, so it's bad PR. You really think that people are going to think of that Kickstarter when they're considering whether or not to buy your book in the comic shop? I mean, come on. And yeah, it made it sound like you want him to be removed from the publisher, in my opinion, and that is not okay at all. And that's why I said there, trying to get people removed from a publisher. How professional, right? Because he was saying how CG and EBS isn't professional, yet he's saying things like this. And then he says, making sure an asshole is not advertised with my book or in my books is correct. If Cyberfrog was in Antarctic Press in my book is also there. The people I want to work with will consider me CG as we are in the same company. That is not acceptable. Who thinks like that? That's like saying, look at Amazon, for example. Amazon, right, allows people to self-publish all over the world. Can you imagine someone be like, I can't publish with Amazon because this other creator's on there and I think they're like a Nazi or something. Like I've got to remove my book from there. I'm afraid someone's gonna think I'm that. Like, come on. Again, this you would be kneecapping yourself. Why? Because if they publish Cyberfrog, well, probably their sales would go up. More people would look at the catalog for the publisher, and then you would get more sales, which you could then use to try to garner more interest from the mainstream. But you're so afraid of guilt by association that you want to kneecap sales. Like that's wild. And I just simply said, Mike is a great guy and a great writer. You wish you had his talent. And he said that he's better than Mike Barron. So yeah, as you can see, it just goes on and on and on. So none of this, this approach, this mindset is not going to help any comics. It's not going to help someone's sales at all. Again, you should want everyone to read your book. You should want to get your book in front of everybody. That's that simple. Because the biggest fight that indies have is reach. That's that's the battle right there. Getting reach. The only way you're going to get reach, besides some luck, right? And obviously great art and all that helps, but it's networking, it's getting yourself in front of other people. Plain and simple. And then let's look at one other fun little exchange with another agitator. Let's see here. So, another agitator, which I think they're kind of buddies these days, but jumps in out of nowhere and there's a quote tweet that says, "Dude, you could take 25 years to come out with a book, and the art would never look as good as one of mine. So feel free, take your time." I am going to take my time. I want the story and the art to be as good as possible. Obviously within what I can afford, but that's what I care about. I'm not here to brag about releasing a book every so many months. I'm here to try to make an impact with my story. Try to get in front of as many readers as possible. And this was what he said I need to strive towards beating. hmm I don't know what's going on with this thigh here. Maybe she just doesn't have any muscles, and yeah, that's literally bait, right? And that's the marketing tactics for a lot of folks is boobs. Like, yeah, that's some creativity. something that's literally been around forever and they're all over the place. But so yeah, that and like this. Like I'm not gonna bash it, but it's not doesn't wow me. It's like pretty meh, you know. But like that's what you're gonna use to try to one up me. Um, okay. So I don't know. Let's take a look here. Let's just look at a little bit of art, right, from my campaign, and you guys can judge if Corey and Joe Ball and Skunk Artworks did a good enough job. I mean, right here, I'm gonna say I think this one definitely sticks out more um, than that one cover that you just saw. I mean, I know something stuck out on that cover to pull people in, but yeah, I'm gonna say I'm not too worried about beating his art based on what I've already released. Not at all. Definitely think there's a little bit more creativity here, originality. I mean, come on. And then he later on did a tweet trying to bash this piece, saying it was over rendered and that uh, essentially that Joe didn't know anatomy. We just saw some pretty strange anatomy. So, but see, that's again, that's the dick measuring that some folks will push in indie comics there, right? Just out of nowhere, hey, let's just take a shot at that guy's video and then try to say that his art is not up to snuff compared to theirs. And in a lot of cases, they just embarrass themselves. So, well, while we're here, just quick reminder that this campaign will be closing out at the end of February. It'll be mid to late February, not entirely sure when, but would love again anyone to buy this book. I don't care what your beliefs are, your political stances, what groups you're in. I want you to read my story. I want you to experience a fantastic team of vigilantes. I want you to relate to Slade Allen, right? A man who is searching for purpose in his life. And as a result of a monumental, selfless act, he is bound to a grimoire that turns him into a gargoyle every night at the strike of midnight. And he uses that newfound power to try to uncover the secrets in the city of Detroit, find out who is behind the rampant crime and terrorism in the city. And as a result of that, you're going to get pulled into some Lovecraftian horror, some mind control, and a gnarly villain named Incubus. Right? You're going to have an emotional story filled with action, filled with relatable events and characters that I know once you get to see them in a comic, you're going to absolutely love the story. This is for fans of Frank Miller's stories, Alan Moore's, again, big inspirations for me. So I definitely think folks will connect with this story if you connected with their stories. So yeah, we have two novels. We have a mini comic. Purpose of the mini comic is to make it a more immersive reading experience so that you can play out the story like a film in your mind and get that missing visualization that folks don't usually get with novels. And you get some fantastic art, like I mentioned, by Corey Barton, Joe Ball, Elliot Rodriguez, and Skunk Artworks. The piece here, which is a really big painting, which comes framed, is available. So please check that out. Some lucky backer can pick that up. I'll ship it out ASAP. Also, this piece here, the original art as well as the original art for the gargoyle print is available as well. It's like a three-piece bundle from Elliot Rodriguez. I just added that to the campaign, so please check that out as well. You only have about a month left to get that. And there's also the duology version of the novels, right? Two in one, about 500 pages with this beautiful Joe Ball cover. So don't miss out on that. As mentioned, these books in this format might not be available again in the future. Again, with how much printing costs have went up, and the fact that I'm going to be shifting towards the comic as well as the third novel, I don't know if I'll be able to make these available in this oversized format with the uh, soft touch lamination and larger font and all of that. I don't know because yeah, they are a lot more expensive to print now than they were when I started this campaign. So, and I just don't want to have to charge people really high prices either. So, yeah, definitely check it out. There's also lunch boxes, puzzles, and a lot of other goodies available as well. One other thing I wanted to show folks is do a little bit of promotion for Andy Smith's Core Draft 2. So let me share my screen here. So yeah, we have Kor Drath Volume 2, The Awakening by Andy Smith and Dennis Turner. So anyone that's a fan of Conan, right, for example, this is definitely a book for you. He has a catch-up tier as well. Kor Drath 1 looked phenomenal. This is something I need to catch up on. And he has a lot of, cool perks and t-shirts and things of that nature, some original art commissions available. But Andy's a great guy as well. He promotes others, brings them on their channel. Came from the mainstream, really good voice in the community. So highly recommend you guys check this out. Would love to get this. This should be at 100K. I mean, this is a great looking book. The art is fantastic. I mean, this is this is top notch art. I mean, this is better than a lot of the modern mainstream art that we're seeing. Great compositions and colors. And this I love this piece. This is a Dan Lawless piece here, but the just the coloring and this style here is absolutely awesome. I think he also has a game tied to this as well. He's got a Irene Strakowski cover as well. So just a great team of artists and yeah, character cards. Yeah, just awesome looking campaign. So definitely get this out there, share it with folks. Let's try to get him some more backers. There's a lot of cool stuff on this campaign. So please check that out. And yeah, just want to thank everyone for being here. Really appreciate you spending the time sifting through some of the Twitter trash, listening to my weekly rant about rage bait and rage mergence and all that good stuff. And yeah, let's do what we can to get the word out about crowdfunding, right? Instead of trying to, prevent folks from being exposed to certain groups or certain books or entertainment, let's push independent comics. Let's push crowdfunding. We need to get more people backing crowdfunding comics. We need to get that excitement up and just help indie creators grow. And yeah, I just appreciate everyone being here. Let's see who else is in the chat here. Yeah, BA grabbing an oar. Yeah, the way it should be. Yeah, you know, I don't have a lot of time to promote, to stream, so I do what I can, but trying to give back to those that helped me out, helped me have a good and successful campaign, and hopefully help guys keep leveling up and be able to expand. Flady here said, yeah, Incubus was a great classic unseen villain like Dr. Claw or Zoltar from Gotcha Man and Battle of the Planets. Yeah, yeah, definitely a very unique, just vile, nasty villain. Old school. You just hate him. You want to see him get taken out. Right? There's motivation for the characters, but there's motivation for the reader too. He's just absolutely despicable. So, all right. Well, again, thank you everybody for being here. I'm going to be jumping actually on Len Lurks More channel. That name is great. Here in a couple minutes. So feel free to look up his YouTube channel if you want to come check out that chat. And yeah, let's support the indie community. Let's not agitate. You can slap back, but don't be an agitator. Don't be a rage baiter. Be a creator. Be a supporter. Thank you guys, and God bless. Take care.